Today, my guest is Dr. April Darley, and we are going to talk about shadow work in business.
You're tuned into Big Ideas Small Business with Doreen Milano. Doreen brings energy, focus, and creativity with the most cutting-edge tools and systems needed to grow business, drive profits, and achieve dreams. Ready to rise? Here's your host, Doreen Milano.
Welcome, April.
Thank you.
I'm so glad you're here.
Me too. Thanks for having me.
And let's educate our audience as to what shadow work is,
right,
and why it's so important.
Absolutely. So it's a scary little name for something that absolutely has to be done. So if you're not familiar with the term shadow work or shadow self, you may have heard of Carl Jung. And if you haven't heard of Dr. Carl Jung, he was a psychiatrist, but he was a contemporary of Sigmund Freud. And Carl Jung decided, or realized, if you will, that within each of us we have a shadow. And it's almost like looking at a sunny day at the sidewalk. We see our shadow. And we don't look at it and go, oh, that's bad. We just say, that's a part of me. And your shadow self is the same way. And it's helpful to think of it like a box. And inside of that box, we tend to stuff the things that we're afraid of, our traumas, the things we're embarrassed about, we're ashamed of, and the things that we would like to ignore.
Ooh.
Right? We all stuff that into the box. Well, unfortunately, what you stuff down doesn't just disappear. It relocates. So if you are not dealing with the things that you're stuffing down, that's going to bubble up eventually, and it can turn into anxiety, which is what I see most commonly, anger, fears, phobias, procrastination. And for the business owner, it's not really good for you to procrastinate, for you to ignore things.
No, it's not.
Right. So shadow work is really the way that you develop emotional strength or emotional resiliency. And a great example of that is when this pandemic first started, we were all surprised, we were shocked, unprecedented. But those business owners who had the most resiliency, these were the ones who pivoted first. These were the ones who looked at that challenge and they went, I can't control that, but how can I go around that? So they went through their fear and into that space of creativity. And then those were the ones who were most successful in the beginning. Now, each of us, we have a survival pattern. You've heard of fight, flight, and freeze.
Absolutely.
Right? So those business owners that had that fight reflex, these were your early pivoters. And those that were freezing and wanted to run away and ignore all this stuff, they stalled a little bit.
A lot of my clients did that.
Right. So those were the later adopters. They had to look at all of these businesses and going, how can I go online? I'm a yoga studio. How can I possibly go online? I'm a restaurant that doesn't do delivery. What does that mean for me? So really, you had to get
I'm a bar.
Right? You're a bar.
I'm a bar.
You're a bar, and now you can't have in-house patrons.
Right.
I mean, that's a big deal.
It's huge.
So when you have emotional strength, when you've done your shadow work, it leads you to that place where you can pass through that fear to that goodness that's on the other side. And you can really let go of what you're afraid of to embrace what makes you uniquely you. And in the business world, we always say, what's going to make you stand out? Right. What is unique about you? And unfortunately, those are the things we tend to put in the box and tuck away because those are the things that we're afraid we'll get judged for. So shadow work can help you not only let go of what you're afraid of, it can also help you embrace your strengths.
And stand up for what's unique
Exactly.
about you.
Exactly.
That is a big deal in today's environment,
Absolutely.
right? So one of the pieces that I think is so important about shadow work is not only for you as a business owner, but look at your team.
Right.
And when your team is not out in front, putting their best foot forward, what is going on for them, and how can they get into an environment where they are willing to explore that shadow part of who they are, so that they can join you up in the front of the room.
Right.
Right?
So shadow work really requires you to have a little bit of bravery and to be willing to open the box and look at things you'd rather not. And as a business owner, I think one of the most important things you can do is realize it's a privilege for you to be able to employ others, because you're helping them build the life of their dreams as well, and they're also helping you continue the life of your dream.
It's a collaborative effort.
It is.
It's not
right?
all for one.
Right.
It is everybody working together to an end goal.
Absolutely.
Right? So there's a lot of people, business owners, that don't embrace that perspective.
I see it.
And I believe, and this is my personal opinion as being a coach and talking to lots of business owners, is that when we have that single-minded perspective, we are losing out on so much that is available to us. And that is a piece of shadow work that you help bring out of those business owners, so that they can open up and have that bigger perspective about who they are in the community, in the business place, and within even government. Because no matter what, a lot of our leaders in government are business owners. And how do we accept that if we've got all this stuff in front of us that we can't see through?
Right. I'm a big believer in personal responsibility, because if you don't deal with the things, shadow work is really unique. So if you don't deal with it willingly, the universe has a way of destroying things around you to force you to deal with it. So it's much less painful if you can take that personal responsibility and go,
do it on your own.
Do it on your own. I know this is an issue. I'm just going to be brave and complete this, work through it, versus having to do it, because that's far less pleasant.
This is true. This is very true. What are some of the other methodologies that we can use?
So people have probably already done some form of shadow work and don't even realize it. So if you've ever journaled with a journaling question prompt to help you work something out, that's a form of shadow work. If you have ever meditated with a specific question, have you ever asked yourself, why am I reacting to this? That's shadow work. So it doesn't have to be so scary, it just sounds scary.
Well, it does sound a little scary.
Right. You do have to be brave.
A little, behind the curtain kind of stuff. Right? And so when we choose to take this journey, and some people take this journey through church, right?
And some don't.
And some don't. Some kind of shy away from it. But when I was first introduced to this kind of work was when I went to classes at my church, and they were asking those kinds of questions. Who do you want to be? What's stopping you from being the person you want to be? Those kinds of questions. And you would journal on it. So when we look at the resources around us, sometimes it's church, sometimes it's journaling.
Sometimes it's business coaching.
Right. Because, all business coaching, we're talking about the individual.
We are.
We're talking about the leader. And we're talking about the skills that the leader needs. And what is preventing the leader from having those skills. So let's have that kind of conversation where we can really explore, because it's not necessarily having to hire a shadow coach. Right? Although
I want you to.
Although we would love everybody to hire Dr. April here. But it's really about how we can help ourselves move forward within the environment that we're in. So we're going to talk more after these commercials, and we get to talk to our sponsors and learn something new. We'll be right back.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? We're spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Does it mean persevering over 20 years, even after 4 masked men set one of our printing presses on fire last year? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
My American dream is to help you stay healthy and energized so you can live your American dream.
Our American dream is equipping future generations of American dreamers.
My American dream is to protect my community so they can live their American dream.
My American dream is to bring you some spice and flavor to your life.
Our American dream is ensuring what's most valuable to you.
Our American dream is creating opportunities for healthcare providers so they can have their American dreams.
My American dream is serving our business community and advocating for all of your American dreams.
Okay, so shadow work.
Right.
Right? Does it go by any other name?
It can go by emotional resiliency. I often call it emotional strength. It can go, journaling is a form of shadow work. But usually in the business world, you will hear it by emotional resiliency, emotional intelligence, or emotional strength.
I work a lot with emotional intelligence.
Mm-hmm.
I work a lot with people who need to see emotions as a resource, right?
Yeah.
Because a lot of times business owners, CEOs, have a problem with people being emotional in the boardroom and or within their teams, right? How do you address that?
So for my people, I want to educate you about your brain and how the brain works, right? This is, those old commercials, this is your brain. So for us, there is something called the three-brain theory, and this was created by Dr. Paul MacLean. He was a neuroscientist. So instead of having one brain like we think, we have three distinct brains that function almost as if they had their own personality and their own motivation.
Got it.
The first brain is called your survival brain. It's everything we think or believe to be what we need for survival. It's food, shelter, tribe, a mate, and it also kicks up your fight, flight, or freeze reflex.
And it's also referred to as the monkey brain,
the reptilian brain, the lizard brain,
and the amygdala. Right.
So this brain is actually considered your default brain. So if you were a computer, this is the default home setting. It's almost like a caveman. So this brain is concerned about your safety.
Ooh, yeah.
And this brain is constantly calculating the odds of worst case scenario and death and disaster. And that's your default.
And it's also the reason when you walk into a room and you meet somebody and you automatically do not like them.
Right.
That is not your personality.
Yeah.
That is your lizard brain or your amygdala sending signals saying, this person is not like us, they are a threat.
Right. So that brings us to the next layer. So the next layer is your emotional brain or your subconscious. This brain is everything we think or believe to be true about ourselves, our circumstances, or other people. So this brain has no concept of time. So something that happened to you at 5, it doesn't know you're now 35. All it sees is a group of similar circumstances that it groups together, links together, and carries forward. So these circumstances will elicit a particular emotional response from you every time you encounter them. And then you've got your logical brain. It's the neocortex, math, language, logic. This is what we like to think of as our brain. So this is what those employers who don't like emotions in the workplace, this is the brain that they're coming from. It's the analytical piece. But that's not the one in charge. The survival and emotional brain make up to 80 to 90% of every decision you make. So 80 to 90% of everything you do, everything you want, everything you think is based off survival and emotion, not logic. So what we have to do in the type of shadow work that I guide people through is I'm actually helping you find the source of the problem. We're picking it up, we're dissecting it a little bit, and we're showing it to that logical brain. Because the way you get yourself out of a panic attack, anxiety, and fear is to bring logic to the situation. Because there's no logic in survival, there's no logic in emotion, and there's no emotion in logic. They are three separate things that all work together.
But they
at any
need
given
trigger
time.
to all get activated at the same time.
Exactly.
Right?
So when all three of your brains want the same thing for you, life is great, things are smooth, but when one of those two brains, survival or emotion, thinks that something's not safe or possible for you, it creates an inner conflict, a feedback loop of stress, and that stress manifests as anything from fear, anxiety, procrastination, anger, etc. So,
and many business owners went through this cycle with the pandemic, and now they're trying to recover.
Right.
And these other brains are still in charge because they haven't deactivated those things that put them in that state.
Absolutely. So as a business and a business owner, if you've got money blocks, if you've got relationship blocks. So a relationship block as a business owner is going to sabotage you if you're afraid to go market, if you're afraid to do a show like this, to give a speech, to do a one-to-one. These are things that are going to sabotage you. Money blocks, if you're afraid to hire an assistant, the staffing that you need. If you're afraid to fire an underperforming staff.
I've run into people that actually hire me to fire people.
Yes.
Because they can't do it themselves. Right?
So these are blocks, and these affect your business, and your business affects other people, not just you.
This is so true. And not all business owners recognize the interdependence that we have as business owners with our staff and our clientele.
Yeah.
It's not just one-sided. So how can we, as business owners, move through this process?
Right. So some of the great tips is if you have to be aware of the behavior first. So this is where we have to bring logic. So if something is not going the way you want it to, don't stuff, don't ignore. You've got to be willing to face it even though it's scary and hard.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is the golden nugget of the day. I want you to really think about this. A lot of us see something and we don't have the time or the energy to deal with it right now. And we have a tendency to stuff it in a box. What Dr. Darley has just revealed to us is don't stuff it in the box. Put it aside. Deal with it. Don't ignore it. Actually look at the problem. And the advice was to look at it from the logical point of view.
Absolutely.
Not the emotional point of view. To unpack it.
Absolutely.
Is that correct?
It is correct, because it's hard to solve a problem if you're not aware of the problem. So we're going to help you become aware of the problem and help you uncover the root cause of it so that you can change it and succeed.
So if we just did that one thing and we stopped taking that problem and throwing it in a box and taping up the box,
yes,
then we would be able to start moving forward through the recovery process at a much quicker pace. Right?
So there's this phrase in business, what you resist persists.
Absolutely.
So, and you've probably seen business owners, they've had a failed business.
Oh yeah, and that haunts them.
It does, but
Truly
they carry
haunts them.
the same thing into their next business.
Yes.
Because they didn't unpack that stuff. So it's our goal to help people be successful.
And we're constantly unpacking what was taped up in a box and put on a shelf. Right? So as we move forward through this recovery process, we have to be willing to pay attention to what scares us, number one. Number two, what we feel guilty about, you know? And let's face it, when the pandemic happened and everything shut down for like 6 weeks, I looked at it, oh my God, I've got a vacation finally.
Right?
Right?
And you make a great point. So the pandemic I'm an optimist. That's my natural state. So I'm trying to see what's the silver lining here. And that's a silver lining.
Absolutely.
You got to rest, right? I think some other silver linings were some business owners realized they were in the wrong business.
Yes.
They didn't like what their business had now become. And they are now kind of battling with that guilt of they want to shut it down. Or they're on the cusp of losing it because they won't own up to, I need to change it.
Right.
Some of them are seeing their infrastructure wasn't solid.
A lot of businesses had a very shaky infrastructure.
Right. So they're having to deal with these infrastructure changes. They're having to deal with, do you still like this business? Are you able to adapt to the changes in the world?
All incredible choices, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is we are responsible for making our own choices.
Right.
No matter what. How we choose to move forward is a big deal.
Yeah.
But we have to take personal responsibility for that choice.
Yeah.
So we're going to stop right here for a second. You think about personal responsibility and choices, and we're going to talk to our sponsors. We'll be right back.
Business runs on technology, and human beings are creatures of habit. Unfortunately, not all our habits are good. Technology, when it works, is supposed to make our lives easier, creating routines that allow us to protect customer data, track our progress, forecast the future, communicate better, and move much faster. So, you need technology solutions that work when you're not working, or simply not paying attention. Smart technology solutions, making the complicated uncomplicated.
What does it mean to devote your life to the truth? Does it mean investigating communist subversion here in America? Does it mean exposing the deadly fentanyl crisis in the Midwest? Or spending late nights and covering deep government corruption? Because at a time when America's traditional values are under attack, it's the responsibility of righteous journalists to uphold truth and tradition.
Welcome back to Big Ideas Small Business, and we're talking about shadow work. We're here with Dr. April Darley. And Doctor?
Yes.
Where did you get your degree?
Right, great question. So I love to travel. So I went up to Alaska to get my undergrad. So I have a bachelor's in biology. And then I went to Arizona at a four-year postgraduate medical school. And I have a doctorate in naturopathic medicine or natural medicine. And in Arizona, I functioned as a primary care physician, but a naturopathic doctor. In Texas, it's a little structured a little bit differently here, but that's my background.
That's good to know. So when you tell us that within the shadow work, we're dealing with fear, primarily, right? Because that's what we usually put in the back box and tape it up and stick it on the shelf because we don't want to look at it, we don't want to see it. I'm going to challenge that with feel the fear and do it anyway. How do we do that?
100% agree. And chances are, maybe you're a single parent, you know a single parent, you know someone who's a plucky person. But I'm going to use a single parent as an example. You don't have the luxury of falling apart long term.
No.
Because you have people that depend on you, and business owners are the same way. You can take your moments, and you need to take those moments. You can go cry in the shower. You can spend an extra long time in the bathroom, go for a jog, let it all out. But then you got to pull yourself up by your bootstraps and carry on, because life is not going to wait for you. Feel the fear and do it anyway. You've got to keep moving forward, because that's where growth happens. Otherwise, you feel stuck and lost.
And you have to create those moments where you can reflect.
Yes.
And apply logic to that fear, right?
So the number one thing I recommend to my clients is meditation, but it's the number one thing they don't do as well. But meditation gives you that moment to turn that anxiety off and to recalibrate, turn that parasympathetic back on. So you just take a few moments to recollect.
So I can share something here at this point. When I was a single mom, I had a routine. I got up before the kids, got my cup of coffee, and took a 10-minute hot tub. And I would just reflect on what the day was going to be, and I drank my coffee, got out of the hot tub, ran through the shower, got the kids' lunches ready, did blah, 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 and got them off to school, and I went to work, and yada, yada, yada. So I'd come home, we get all the homework done, they get dinner, I get the kitchen clean, they go to bed, I grab a glass of wine, I spend an hour in the hot tub reflecting on the day, looking at, what scared me, how can I get past it, what are the things that I need to work on tomorrow, and so I'm not actually writing a journal, but I'm taking the mental
that works
process
that counts
of going through what can I do better, how can I do that better, so on and so forth.
Right.
So I'm creating 2 spaces in the day. Some people use prayer. Some people use
rituals. So you have your rituals, like your coffee in the morning, your hot tub, your wine. I think rituals are fantastic because they let that survival brain have a moment of consistency and routine, which is safety to that brain. So no matter what happens in your day, it can count on that glass of wine at night. It can count on the relaxation at the hot tub. So I'm a big believer in whatever ritual is to you. It could be prayer, could be your coffee in the morning, could be your 5 minutes journaling or reading your favorite self-help book. All of these things count to put you in this space.
So how can people get a hold of you?
You can go to my website, which is aprildarley.com. And you can book a free consultation with me. I do free phone consultations. That gives me a chance to learn more about you and your concerns. And I get to tell you a little bit more about how I might be able to help you over that particular concern.
How exciting.
I think so.
And do we have a go-to piece of advice for business owners or people that are struggling with this shadow?
Right. So your shadow is a part of you. And I caution people not to get trapped into this limited mode of thinking where light is good, dark is bad, because that's not true. My goal is to help you see the balance that everybody is both. Everything is both. We have a night and day, and it's about balance. And so that's what I'm hoping to help create within you is balance.
That is so exciting. And I'm Doreen Milano, and this is Big Ideas Small Business. Thank you for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you next time. The fact is, business has changed. Engagement has changed. And for us to recover our businesses and our communities, we have to engage differently. If you want to have a serious conversation about engagement, community, and your business, call me, Doreen Milano, Visions to Excellence. I'm an executive coach. You can reach me at 650-483-5798 or contact me online at v2e.biz. That's capital V, number 2, e.biz. Let's have a conversation.
This has been Big Ideas Small Business with Doreen Milano. Doreen Milano solves problems for small and mid-market family-owned businesses and service-based industries. To work with Doreen, go to v2e.biz. For guest and sponsorship information, call 650-483-5798. Big Ideas Small Business with Doreen Milano is produced by Offbeat Business Media for the OBBM Network. For OBBM Network programming information, call 214-714-0495. Unauthorized use of any part of Big Ideas Small Business with Doreen Milano without prior permission through the OBBM Network is strictly prohibited.